But where we have to go next now is a little further down the table because there is another important battle over the next couple of weeks, and that is the one for third and for fourth between, in order right now, Cavalry, York United, and the Halifax Wanderers. Um, we just want to break down a little bit here why that's going to be so important because home field is just going to be absolutely massive in the playoffs this year. I think just remind everybody of what the playoff bracket looks like. If we were starting today, obviously it'll be Forge and Ottawa in whatever order, first or second in that first championship semifinal, winner of which going straight to host the final. But further down in the bracket, again, it's the third place team that hosts that semifinal qualifier and avoids the midweek knockout match between fourth and fifth place. We've talked on the show before about how valuable that is for a myriad of reasons, but Mitchell, there's another reason why it's so important to be at home at the moment in the CPL.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, there's only been one away victory in the past 6 match weeks, or 2 in the past 8, and both of those have come in Langley, against Vancouver FC team that we know haven't been, very good at home for a long time. So away wins are absolutely at a premium in the Canadian Premier League this season. You look at these 3 teams that are competing right now for that 3rd place spot, they all have 3 wins on the road out of
Mm-hmm.
13 this season. Like, they have not been winning. Halifax hasn't won on the road since I think early May or mid-May. Like, these are teams that have struggled away from home. Some of them, if you look at Halifax in their entire existence, right? Like, this has been a problem for them overall. So booking that home game is absolutely crucial. You look at the CPL playoffs under this new format, only one team has won an elimination game away from home, and that was Pacific when they beat Halifax in that semifinal qualifier, I believe,
Yeah.
in the 2023. So it's incredibly rare, and even for the top 2 teams, right? Like going into that championship semifinal, neither of these sides have lost at home this season in the Canadian Premier League, and so that's going to be an advantage for them to win, to host a final. So everything to play for in terms of getting that home field advantage, but especially this season, and the way things have gone with teams at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Halifax and York are both unbeaten in their last 4 at home, and Cavalry are unbeaten in their last 5 at home. Neither of these teams is really giving anything up on home soil, which is why, again, Cavalry really need this one against Forge on Saturday, or sorry, on Friday night. But AGR, Mitchell mentioned it there. We've seen in the playoffs the last couple of years, especially under this format, how important and how much of an advantage it can be to be at home. The last 2 CPL finals obviously won by the home teams. But maybe AGR, what are some of the things that kind of go into that? Why do these teams, have so much more energy? Why are they so much more comfortable playing at home in the CPL this year?
Yeah, I think it leads to a couple of typical factors, right? I think travel is always the big one in this league. It's just so hard to constantly be traveling, and that's maybe why later in the season we're really seeing it pronounced because you're starting to have tired bodies, you're starting to have injuries pile up. So all of a sudden, that trip from pick whatever generic road trip from Toronto to Vancouver is a little tougher than it might have been in April or May, where you're happy it's early in the season, you're feeling ambitious. Maybe that's the same thing with Halifax, right? They always have a brutal road schedule because they're isolated out there, and maybe early in the season you can get up for these trips, but now going from Halifax to British Columbia or to Alberta just is a little tougher on the bodies when you got so many injuries. So no, it's definitely an interesting stat that in these games that the home advantage matters. I would also add that I think the format kind of plays a role there, that where you finish kind of dictates your path. Like if you're in the top 2, you've got less games to play, the travel's easier, whereas if you're finishing 4th or 5th, there's also the fact that even if you host the 4v5 game right away, you win it, you have to travel on 2-3 days rest and go play a rested team that's waited for you at home. So that's the reason why this format's been so intriguing, that there is that difference between 1 to 5, and that it means things like home field advantage play out a little more, especially in a home dominant league with a lot of travel like this one.
I think you look at the 5 teams that have qualified for the playoffs this year as well, and to a T, they're all like attack first teams, essentially. Like, they all love to play on the front foot. They all love to play that attacking style of football. And that doesn't always necessarily translate on the road. Like sometimes it is better to be more cagey, to sit back, to play in those blocks. And maybe that's why teams like Vancouver and Valor have had so much success in this late stages of the season. So I think that's a factor as well, maybe that on the road these teams maybe go and try to attack, and sometimes that can end up being to their detriment, when maybe it would be a little bit better to play maybe a bit more cautiously, even if from a entertainment factor, especially with the games on Sunday this week, maybe we wouldn't necessarily encourage that.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into these 4 games coming up this weekend, just because it is kind of interesting. We got 1 game per day, pretty much over Thanksgiving weekend. It's York Pacific on Thursday night. In fact, we can probably bring it up here. It's York Pacific on Thursday night, Cavalry Forge on Friday, Valor Halifax on Saturday, and Ottawa Vancouver on Sunday. So York United could go into 3rd place if they beat Pacific on Thursday night. And that would put a lot more pressure on Cavalry against Forge on Friday. But what we really need to talk about with these games is there's quite a few guys missing for a lot of these teams, especially the 3 fighting for this 3rd place. York are without Stefan Yates and Frank Stirring for international duty and suspension. Obviously, there's the other players that we know that are out, Oswaldo Leon and so on. But I think it's even tougher at the moment for Cavalry and Halifax. So Cavalry missing Ali Musi, Shamit Shom, and Mihail Gerasimenkov, all to international duty, plus Michael Baldissimo to suspension after he was sent off against Pacific. And then Halifax, this one's tough. Halifax are without Telfer and Rampersad to international duty. Wesley Timoteo suspended. Thiago Coimbra still hurt. It sounds like Jason Bahambula is also hurt now. So maybe we'll start there.
Rayan Yesley. Don't forget their goalkeeper.
Yesley, sorry, of course, Yesley.
Arguably the most important.
By the way, congratulations, called up to Algeria. That's really cool, but maybe bittersweet if you're Patrice Geyser. Let's start with Halifax. AJR, what do you do if you're Patrice? You don't really have a striker. You're gonna have to play a backup goalkeeper. I don't even know who's gonna play left back with Timoteo gone. This is a tough hand he's been dealt.
Yeah, it's tough. And you could see even it was a tough hand in their last game, or against York. They started well. You wondered if they could maybe get that second goal and get that game over the line, but they just kind of had no juice up front at a certain point. Like you could see how much there was, at one point, Sean Rea made a through ball that maybe Thiago Coimbra gets on the end of, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, there's just something missing for Halifax. They were really dangerous on set pieces. They scored on set pieces, but no, for Halifax, they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to figure out a way to especially this Valor team, now that they've got nothing to play for. It's not going to be an easy match. So I'm really worried in particular about that 9, because really when Coimbra hasn't been there, the goals kind of dry up. Like the rest of the field, I'm sure they're figured it out. They got a lot of defenders. They can kind of compensate. Maybe they can tweak things slightly to make things easier for Aiden Rushinas, assuming he steps up and gets the start. But whenever Coimbra has been out, it's been emergency solutions at the 9, and probably the next best solution has been Bahambula, and he's also out. So what do you kind of do at that point?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's just so many spots on the pitch that there's not really a 1-for-1 replacement. Like I think Kareem So is going to play left back probably. Maybe you get really creative up front. It's a false 9 situation since nobody's really that target man. Sean Rea false 9. Maybe that's what we'll
TMG up front. Just do it.
TMG. Honestly, screw it.
If
you haven't been scoring that much in the last few weeks, then you might as well just put your tallest guy up front and then send crosses at him. But we'll see. This is why Patrice Geyser is the coach and not me, because I'm sure he's got a solution that I would not have. But Mitch Cavalry as well have similar problems. They're going to have to change their whole midfield. Or at least their double pivot, because it was Showman Baldissimo on the weekend. Gutierrez has been hurt, not in the squad. Eric Kobza is on the bench. He's done it a couple times this year. Nico Moroniak. What do you do if you're Tommy Wilton Jr.?
Honestly, I kind of think they have decent cover there. Like Max Pipegrass, if he's healthy, has obviously been a really solid fill in there. Cobbs has done very well when he's been there and in there. What AGR mentioned about Halifax, which is the Coimbra thing, like their offense looks completely different. I'm kind of most concerned about Musi, because Cavalry's attack is so much about having all the different balance parts. And look, he hasn't been the most incredibly consistent this season. We know the numbers have been have been there for him, but he's had some highs and lows. But when he hasn't been in that attacking lineup, like the balance just hasn't been there. They haven't been sure what to do with that right flank completely. It's been a bit of an issue. So that's kind of my biggest concern, especially against a Forge team that's obviously, you're gonna have to score some against, and it's obviously incredibly difficult to score against on your best day, even if they did four or score four last time. I'm still a little concerned about what they can do without Ali Musi. I think he's kind of been the difference maker and X factor for them, probably really in their entire existence, but this season as well.
Yeah, he's been outstanding for especially the last couple of months, I think. In Calgary, a player that I really have wanted to see a lot more from, and maybe this is his opportunity, is Ayman Salouf, who I think a lot of people maybe forget is there at the moment. Because I don't think he's got a start yet with Cavalry. He's been coming off the bench a lot, and yet to have that kind of big, kind of impactful moment off the bench, like we were maybe used to him doing with Pacific. So maybe this is his opportunity. Obviously, it's a big spot against Forge, but lots of tough decisions for these managers to make, and at a very, very, very important moment of the season, as we mentioned